Okay, so you've got your workspace all set up and you're ready to start coding your client portal application. Well, now, as a no code specialist, one of the things that I like to do first is I like to start with a database. Now, with that database, I like to start putting in some fake information. This won't go out in production, but as I'm building it, I like to see some live data and I like to see the information as I'm coding it so that I can make changes and see the results in real time. So to do this in Dittofi, Dittofi has made it very simple. If you go to the third button down, so on the left-hand corner, so you see the Dittofi icon. If you go down to the third button, you'll see this table icon. When you left click on it, it's going to drop you into the database editor. Now, think of this as an Excel spreadsheet. That's probably the easiest way to think of. You want to be able to store data somewhere and be able to retrieve it and display it to your customers. So to do this, we're going to want to make some modifications to it. Since this is a customer portal application, we can go ahead and just assume that a user is going to be a customer as well. So Dittofi automatically gives you a users table, which is what we're looking at. You can see that there are actually three fields here in the database. So you have ID, which is standard. It's needed by everything. Think about this as a auto incrementing number that allows Dittofi to keep track of where everything is. Next, you have email and password. When this makes sense because in order for a user to log into our application, they want to put in a username and password in order to log in. This is where we store that to check to make sure that what they're entering is actually correct, and then we can retrieve that and log them in. But if you want to add some more fields, see this plus sign? If you left click on that, you're going to have a couple options. The first one that you see that's highlighted in blue here, this is actually where you put your name. So let's start off with first name. We want to capture the first name. And I like to name mine first_name. Now, every field has to have what's known as a field type. This is the sort of information that is going to be stored within this database. In our case, it's just going to be a simple text. So we're going to scroll down in this field type and we're going to look for single line text and we're going to select it. Once we've selected the field type, you'll notice we have these two options, allow null values and apply default when blank. So allow null values is if I want to allow people to optionally put information into my database. So for instance, let's say that we wanted to have a phone number. Well, not everybody's going to want to put their phone number in. So I want to make that an option for them. I want them to put it in if they're willing to give it to us, but if they're not, then that's fine. We can just allow them to leave it blank. But what happens if they do leave it blank? Well, you can have this apply default when blank, and you can toggle that on and you can actually choose what you want it to say. In our case, we're going to turn allow null values off because we don't want them to leave their first name blank. And then once we're selected that, we're going to hit save. Now you're going to see now we have a first name column in our database. Next, let's add a last name. So same thing, we're just going to keep our naming conventions the same. And then since this is going to be the same sort of thing, we're just going to choose single line text and turn off allow null values and then hit save. And let's capture a couple more information from them. So let's capture a business name. And let's also capture a phone number from them. So business name, we're not going to allow that to be null. And then we're going to add a phone number. And then Dittofi actually has a value type of phone number. So that's the one you're going to want to click. This one we're going to leave allow null. That way they don't have to put in a phone number unless they want to put in a phone number. And then once you got that done, we're just going to hit save. And now we've built out our users table. Now, as we get further along in this course, I'm sure we're going to be adding more things to this, but I just want you to get the basic idea of how you set up your database. But a database is only good if it has some information into it. Well, you could wait till you code everything, but Dittofi has simplified that whole process. You'll notice that beneath this is a blank row. You can actually click in any of these fields and this pop-up is going to come up. And this is where you can actually put in some email addresses. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and add in some fake information here. So we'll say this is John Smith at smithenterprises.com. And we'll just do password of password. First name is going to be John. Last name is going to be Smith. Business name is going to be Smith Enterprises. And let's do 555, 555, 555, 5, and then hit save. Now, as we do that, you're going to see that information is actually stored in the database. And you can see how it's stored. The password, as expected, we can't see what their password is. It's full of asterisks, so we can't see their password. But we can see their first name is John, their last name is Smith, their business name is Smith Enterprises with the phone number 55555. One row is sufficient, but I'd like to have a couple rows because that way I can make sure that everything is loading correctly. So let's go ahead and add another one. Now you'll notice I'm not putting in an ID, but since this is the first record that has been generated, it automatically assigned it an ID of 1. And as we enter in another field, it's going to automatically increment that to 2. So let's say that this is Becky. Let's say Becky Francis. Now we'll leave password as password as well. First name Becky, last name Francis, and this is going to be Becky's haircut, and so on. Okay, and then for the phone number, let's just give it a very similar number, but let's just make one slight change. So we'll name this 5556 so we can make sure that it's coming back there. There we go. Now we have 2 records in our database. So as we're building this, we can actually preview our web page and see the live data, and we can work with it. And as we're building our application, we're going to see real information just as it's going to look when we're ready to push our application out to production. But now that we got our database set up, let's go ahead and work on creating our first page. And the first page that we're going to create is our client page. So let's go ahead and go over to the next section.